Hey guys, today I'm going to show you a video on how exactly to write a offer when you are working with a buyer through the MLS and .loop. So let's get started. I'm about to share my screen. All right, so when you are working with a buyer and you want to write up a contract or an offer for a particular property, we're about to go over the exact things to do. All right, so we're going to use this 1222 Mount Vernon as our example, as our property we want to write an offer for. So obviously we already checked the true value of the property, checked the comps. We're just going to strictly go into writing the offer. So first step is to have your property pulled up on the MLS. Second step will be go .loop and create a new loop by going add loop. You either enter the property address or MLS. We're going to just use the street address. And the cool thing is you see many times it will pop up. This one is not. So let's try the MLS ID. Property is not pulling up, so we're just going to write it in there. We could upload a photo on there. So many times I would just save this image. And just upload it on here. Click done. And we're going off to creating a loop. So very important, we want to start specifying the type of property it is for a transaction. Since we're representing the buyer, it's going to be a purchase. Status, since we have not got it under contract yet, it's going to be a pre-offer. And the sales price, since we don't have a sales price yet, we're going to leave it blank. Once we have all that stuff figured out, we're going to go to view loop. Once we are here, we are going to want to add the as is contract or the offer by going to sales packet, scrolling down, the blank as is residential contract. Copy it. Okay. Once you have this uploaded, we're going to click on that. And then we're going to start using the autofill feature to have everything ready to go. So we would put our buyer in. I'm just going to add myself as the buyer. We're going to look at the listing agent. We're going to add the listing agent as well. Find that out. We go back to the MLS. You can find it down here. AJ Stagg, Keller Williams. We added that person. And if you wanted to start adding the escrow, you can, seller, buyer, all that stuff. You see the property address is already on there. Might need to add the tax ID. To find the tax ID, we just go to the MLS again. The tax ID, as you see, is right here. Financials, you would want to put your offer price. So say for instance, this property is listed at $299. We're going to offer $290. The earnest money amount is the deposit amount. Usually it should be around 1%. So for this deal, we're going to make it $3,000. Contract dates, closing dates, I like to do at least 30 to 45 days, gives plenty amount of time to get the deal done. So for this instance, we go about 37 days. Offer expiration date. So with that, I like to give the seller about 24 hours to reply. So since I'm writing this at 11 a.m., I'm gonna make the expiration date 8 space 12 p.m. All right, so they have to reply back by tomorrow, 12 p.m. Property includes. So this is where you would write any additional things you want the property to include. A lot of times you're gonna be including washer and dryer. Very common. So make sure you always put that. And window blinds. If not already stated by the contract. Legal description, very important. So to find legal description, we just go back to the MLS. You see right here, legal description. I'll copy this whole thing and add it right here. Perfect. Then once all this is done, we're gonna click autofill. There you go. A lot of the stuff is already put in. Makes your job a lot easier. So now let's get on to the actual contract and filling this out. So the C is line 1. They want us to name the seller. To find out the seller's name, we're going to go back to the MLS. We're going to click on tax. And we see here, the owner is Oatson Properties LLC. So there. I always like to give some spaces in between. Make everything nice and capitalized. The more cleaner and professional it looks, the better it's going to be for you. As you see, it has the property address, tax ID, legal description, everything that the property is going to include. So that also includes range, oven, refrigerator, dishwasher, disposal, ceiling fans, intercom, light fixtures, drapery, blinds, window treatments, smoke detectors, garage door openers, security gates, and other devices, storm shutters, and anything else. So we added washer and dryer. We also added window blinds, but as you see, it is already added on there, so we're going to remove that. The file items that are excluded. That means items that the seller does not want to include in the sale. So say if they have an expensive chandelier that they don't want to make it part of the sale, they would add that right here. All right, so as you see, we have the purchase price $290, the escrow or deposit check at $3,000, and then we're going to line 29. Hit that. Space 3 days. So the escrow check will be given to the title company within 3 days of everybody signing the contract. Now we have to actually name the escrow agent, their address, phone number, all the pertinent information. To find all that stuff out, we're going to go back to the MLS, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and as you see in Realtor Remarks, it has all the information that we need. So innovative title services. Go to their address. Their phone number. And email address. So it's also good when you have a listing to make sure you add all this stuff. Additional deposit to be delivered to escrow agent. We will leave this blank because we're not going to be doing that. And most of the times you're not going to be doing that. So usually leave it blank or use NA. So line 38, financing expressed as a dollar amount or percentage, the loan amount. So that's how much this guy's getting a loan for, okay? So for instance, we're going to make up that this guy is getting a FHA loan with a 3.5% down payment. So to figure out the loan amount, obviously we are going to figure out 3.5, the down payment minus the purchase price. Which equals to that. Okay. We leave this blank. And then line 40, balance to close, not including buyer's closing costs, prepaids, or prorations. So this is the money that your buyer is actually going to be coming up at the closing table with a check or wired funds that he's going to need to actually close on the property. Essentially, it's going to be the down payment minus this $3,000 deposit check, since essentially he already paid up front for that. So figure out the down payment again, 290 times 0.035 equals 10,150 minus 3,000. And that equals up to 7,150. All right. This to some people could get kind of complicated, but just to make sure you have the math right, all this number, and this number should add up to 290. Okay, so that's always a good way to check your work and make sure you are correct. So you see, it's time for acceptance. We already put that in there. Tomorrow at 12 p.m. It's always a good rule of thumb, 24 hours. Closing date, we already auto-filled that. We put about 37 days or so. If the property is subject to a lease, that means if there's a tenant currently living there, you would check this off. This property does not, so we don't have to worry about that. Line 78, this contract may or may not be assigned. 99% of the times we're going to put may not assign this contract. Sellers do not like that. Okay, so make sure you click this, may not assign. So all these two other options the seller does not like. All right, financing. If your client is paying with cash, you will click this, A. But since we've already established that he's getting a loan on it, an FHA loan on that, we're going to click this contract is contingent on the buyer obtaining a pre-approval of a FHA loan within 30 days. So with this, whenever you see a blank and you see to the right of it, if left blank, then 30 days, use that as the default, okay? But actually write it in there. So we're going to click fixed. So he's getting a fixed loan, which means it's the same standard payments every month with the interest rate not to exceed 3.5. We want to give a little bit of buffer room. So say he got pre-approved for 3.3. We want to put a little bit above that just to make sure we give us a little bit of room to wiggle, because as you know, the interest rates fluctuate. And then we're going to put for a term of 30 years. Okay, that's a standard loan. Standard fixed rate 30-year loan is 99% of the time you're going to be using. Also, as you see, I like to always space out, put the numbers in directly in the middle of each blank. Make it as clean as possible. So you see, buyer shall make mortgage loan application for financing within blank. So if left blank, then 5. So we're going to put 5. Scroll down. We 99% of the time we're going to leave this blank. Line 145, title evidence. If left blank, 15 days. So we're going to write 15 days. All right, so seller shall designate closing agent. So this means that the seller is going to choose the title company. In Orlando, you're going to be using this 99% of the time, as we already kind of wrote in already that we're using the seller's closing agent, which is that name we wrote up here earlier, Innovative Title Services. So this is just restating it on the contract. Okay, so very important, click on that. Scroll down. So this is line 173 is if you would want to add a home warranty for your buyer. For this instance, we're not going to do that. We're not going to have the buyer or seller pay for home warranty. So line 183, seller shall pay installments due prior to closing, and buyer shall pay installments due after closing. 99% of the time we're going to click this. This means if there is a monthly assessment that the seller has been paying, he's only going to pay until up to the point where he owns the house. Once the buyer owns the house, the buyer will continue on the payments for that assessment. Scroll down, flood zone wage certificate, if left blank, 20. Keep scrolling down. Property inspection and right to cancel. Super, super important that we put this in here. I like to do 7 to 10 days. The more competitive the market, the sooner you want to do an inspection, the shorter the time frame. So for this instance, since this is a hot property in a good neighborhood, I'm going to do a 5-day inspection period. I'm going to scroll down. And I want you guys to go in here and read the contract. This is all very standard verbiage that's on here. Very straightforward, very simple. That has already been created for the protection of the buyers. So addendas is this, we're going to add this if we're adding any other addendas to the contract, and I'll go over this a little bit later. Additional terms, this is where you're going to put any additional terms that you need for the contract. Many times, this is where you will put if you need seller credits for closing costs, okay? So for this instance, we're going to add that in there. Seller to pay for purchasers' closing costs, prepaid and fees of $8,000. So now we have stated the seller will be paying for the the purchaser's not only closing costs, but their prepaids and fees of $8,000. So sellers can give your buyer $8,000 for this. Save that, and then voila, it's there. This is where you would also add additional terms. Say if you want the seller to provide a, say, term right certificate, or you would want the seller to make a repair on the property, we'll add that right here. Scroll down. These are signature pages for your buyer. And then we will have to list the brokers, okay? So over here, you put your name. You would put your broker. You put the agent's name, which is already there, and the agent's broker. And there you go. We pretty much filled out the contract completely. We just had to double check on this, okay? To double check on this, we'll go back to MLS and see what kind of attachments are with the property. But before that, make sure we click save. This is very important that we don't have to do all this work again. So when we saved it, we're going to go back to the MLS and check what kind of attachments the property has. So to find out the attachments, we're going to go to the MLS, and we're right up here where this paper clip is at. It's going to have all of our attachments. So as you can see, the property has a seller disclosure with it, and it has a lead-based paint disclosure. These are disclosures that your buyer needs to sign. The seller disclosure is very important because essentially it's going to be a survey showing you everything that could possibly be wrong with the property that the seller is aware of. So once we have these documents ready, we go back to our .loop and we find that particular addenda, and we're going to click on that. So for instance, the lead-based paint is on here, so we're going to look for that one. Lead-based paint disclosure. Perfect. And generally, the seller disclosure isn't going to be on here because that should be accompanied with every offer. So once we have that clicked, we're pretty much done with the offer. Click save. We're going to go back. Share documents, not yet. We got to add those two other docs that we just downloaded. To add documents that you've downloaded, add document, go to browse. The lead-based paint and the seller disclosure. All right, so for instance, lead-based paint, you'd want your buyers to initial in these areas. So to have your buyer initial, we're going to click add initials, assign field, and assign it to your buyer, which is myself. Add your signature. We're going to save. And essentially, we're going to do the same thing with the seller disclosures. At the end of each page, we're going to want our buyer to initial. Just repeat that process all the way down, all until you're done with this. Have them, make sure you have them sign at the end. Once you have all the documents in place, once you double check everything, reread everything, make sure everything's good to go, because once you send it out and you need to make mistakes, it's going to make it a lot more complicated. So And since we're going to look at this, make sure everything's good to go. Make sure my signatures are here. Everything looks good. Make sure everything is right. We are good to go. So once you have everything ready to go and you want it to have your buyer sign, first thing I want to do is kind of reorder this. Just click and drag from most important to least important. So most important thing is going to be the as is contract, then seller disclosures, then lead based paint. Also, I don't want to rename this to not confuse your client. So rename it to purchase agreement. Okay. Once you are ready for signatures, we're going to click all the documents. We're going to click share. We're going to click under Javier. Make sure we click can sign and add a message. Please review the purchase agreement. It's very simple and straightforward, but I will call you in 30 minutes to discuss if you have any questions. I always like to have this message in there. So I'm just letting him know that this contract, which it is, very simple and straightforward, but I'll still give him a call to discuss any questions. When you set it up like this, many times when you give them a call, they're not going to have any questions, or they might have one or two, or we're kind of cutting down time. We don't have to explain everything. And it also gives the client to thoroughly look at the contract. Then we're just going to click share. Then done. And then there you go. You have sent out a contract. Pretty simple. I would want you guys to use the same format that we use on this contract for pretty much 95% of the contracts we're going to use. Obviously, change the address, change any particular details as far as the loan, the numbers. But as far as checking off, we should be checking off things we should be clicking on. We're going to use that pretty much the same format every time. So let's get it done. Thanks, guys.